from University in Stavanger, the Museum of Archaeology, I think is the English translation there. I'm happy to see relatively many of you here in attending. A lot of the field archaeologists are out in Italy, so it's part of the reason why a lot of those are missing. But anyway, Simon will present this rock art of Ukraine and its context talk, which we're very much looking forward to. So the floor and word is yours, Simon.
Thank you. First of all, thank you for inviting me, for arranging it. It's cool to have the opportunity to present it. So, yeah, the initial title was Full of Long Words. I replaced it with this short one, which is more or less representative of what I want to do, is show the rock art of Ukraine. Since we have only one large site in Ukraine, one large rock art site, well, it's not that complicated to present it, at least at the first site, in an hour. The idea is to show how the site is connected with archaeological context in Ukraine and with the way we are dealing with them. So what we learned about Ukraine since 2022 is that it is perfectly located on the crossroads of what is happening in Eastern Europe. Yeah, so many things are coming from the west, too many things are coming from the east, and the site itself is located here, which is not the best place to be right now. Yeah, the front line now is somewhat here. Yeah, so it is occupied now. This is the only large rock art location in Ukraine, as I said. We have some other small features, but this is the only one representative. There is 68 small places where rock art is concentrated around one site, yeah, and over 1,000 engravings. The number is like that because no one actually calculated them. Yeah, we know about that site since 1893 as a rock art location, and it had several stages of study before World War II, after World War II, during this long Soviet Union stage, and then after, and the recent stage was quite fruitful. Besides parietal art, there are some portable rock art specimens, and yeah, that's it. The last major study stage for the rock art objects happened in 70s, early 80s, and then we went back to that in 2018, 2019. The site itself is, well, generally it's a landscape, but the cool things about the landscape concentrate around this place. This is the sandstone hill called Kamyana Mohyla, which is literally translated as stone tomb. There's a legend behind the stone tomb about the giant who was accumulating stones. Then he fell under the stones and God punished him for being too ignorant, whatever. The cool thing about that it is the only location where the sandstone, which is relatively easy to engrave, is just here in the steppe. All landscape around, as you see, is relatively flat and quite distinct. All trees, forests, and dense plants, yeah, intensive green scenes were brought here in 20th century. So during prehistory, that was a flat landscape with a river, yeah, somewhere here, and this sandstone hill that was obviously attracting attention of prehistoric inhabitants. There are a large burial complex nearby, several settlements. This is the largest one, settlement of Kamyana Mohyla 1. I will refer to this one several times during the talk, so yeah, this one is relatively important. The cool stuff, the rock art is concentrated here. This is 12 meters tall, and 12 to 13 meters tall, and 90 to 100 meters long. So you can imagine the scale. There's one more image to see the scale, and and the structure. The structure is that what we think, what geologists think of it, that it used to be 2 or 3 huge sandstone slabs that started cracking, crashing, collapsing, and created these hollow spaces inside which we call caves, but they are not actually caves. Yeah, there's just shelters, filled sometimes with sand, sometimes filled with rock art engravings. Yeah, people never lived here, but always lived somewhere nearby. And one more scale image. Yeah, so this person should be somewhat meter 78. So that's relatively what we have. And yeah, the entrance to the cave might look like that or like that. Now it mostly means crawling there, but so it seems that some thousand years ago, this sand was lower and that was pretty walkable there inside. But now to go there, you need to actually extract the sand, and that makes it pretty dangerous. So all excavation procedures are a little complicated. Yeah, so that's the site. There are many different scenes, and we will go stratigraphically from the latest to the earliest. I will walk through the chronological stages, and the older the stage is, the longer I will talk about it, because it happens then we know more and more about the earlier and earlier stuff, and then there'll be the methodological part about how we struggled thinking about Paleolithic rock art and how we basically failed. Spoilers. Yeah, so the Iron Age is quite simple and straightforward. During the Iron Age, there were guys coming from the east, mostly. That might be Caucasus, Central Asia, near Caspian Sea region, some types of that things. These guys are relatively well attributed because they collide with Sarmatian Tamgas from all around Asia, and you can be sure that it is somewhat 100 year BC, maybe 100 CE, somewhere around 2,000 years ago. But that's more or less all we can say about them now. Yeah, this is Tamgas. They are not letters. They probably borderline signs or tribal signs. That's it. Some years before, there were a lot of things that might be attributed to Scythian mount warriors, horses, warriors, spears, and all related to that part. That would be somewhat 500 years BC. And this is a cool one. You see it is engraved. Engravings are deep, accurate. This is quite figurative, so this one is good. This one is not as good. Because, yeah, well, one can see some kind of horse here and can think that, well, if it's horse, most probably it's Iron Age, Scythian. That's the official interpretation so far, because we don't have anything better than that. And you see why, because there's a lot of different things engraved, and dealing with them all would require proper methodological solutions. And applying these methodological solutions would mean we excavate, get the proper access to the object, and then see what we can do with that. That never happened, and I guess that will not happen nearest days for some reason. Yeah, so that's to present what we have. Most of engravings, most of rock art on Kamyana Mohyla are engravings. What we can access exclusively engraved. Yeah, which means that we can't take samples, we can't study dyes, we can't do any kind of organic dating. We only stuck with the shape of the rock surface. This is interesting when you do 3D modeling, like I do. Second part is Neolithic. There are some Bronze Age scenes, but they are not too representative to refer to. Second episode about what I want to tell, yeah, is Neolithic. It's circa 4 millennia BCE. Here's the cool things start to appear. First, we have this many geometric engravings filled with red ochre, which means that there are probably chances to do proper chronological dating at some point, because there are guys now who are able to extract proper C14 dates or other radiocarbon dates from the ochre pigment. This is good. What other thing that is good is that the engravings attributed to Neolithic are very figurative. This is very picturesque one. It's located in what we call the Bull's Cave. Guess why? Yeah, and this is probably the most iconic part of what we have at Kamyana Mohyla, because it certainly represents this part of steppe rock art tradition, which is related to the east. And Kamyana Mohyla is right on the border of steppe zone, Eurasian Steppe belt, where you don't have rock art locations further to the west that would represent this. And also you don't have rock art locations further to the east that would represent European context or local context, because the nearest rock art locations actually to the Kamyana Mohyla would be Gobustan in southern Caucasus, which is far in Asia, and also Kapova Cave, which is Ural Mountains, almost Asia, yeah, or dependent, yeah, well, too far away, much more than 1,000 kilometers. Yeah, so these guys used to be considered in this steppe tradition and attributed to Neolithic, and there are some more images of them. There are cup marks filled with ochre. This is, again, this is good for attribution, dating, and stuff. Yeah, just so you knew better what they refer to when I say bull images, yeah. The most intriguing narrative about this cave and this naturalistic images is this animal. Yeah, so you would think that this thing means something particular, and that's why when it was discovered in 1947, it was considered to be a mammoth, and brought the whole set of interpretations related to the Upper Paleolithic origin of Ukrainian rock art. And that launched a huge discussion about whether this is mammoth or a bull. Those who voted for mammoths basically were quite eager to find Upper Paleolithic in Ukrainian rock art and associated with huge European tradition of cool Upper Paleolithic rock art and caves and, yeah, what we like from southern France. Yeah, another option is that the bull is in charging position and his horns are pointed upwards. What we did here is provided the photogrammetric study to reveal all these images and look closer at this one, look closer at this line to see that basically this widening here is the result of damage that probably happened either during or after engraving phase. This is not made initially, it is not planned. Yeah, and this line basically is technologically same as this and most probably resembles a spear. And while the ochre here is also not original, this stone was covered with ochre when it was transported to Kiev, because the guys who worked at the museum in Kiev claimed that the ochre were fallen during transportation and they need to re-ochre it. Yeah, and they re-ochred it according to the drawing made in 1947 during the stone discovery. So that all comes to the responsibility of the person who discovered it and brought all this. Obviously, that person was the proponent of the mammoth narrative. You can see it from the picture clearly, yeah. But what we have, in fact, is this guy, which finds resemblance with the rock art of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and figurines from Russia near Caucasus, related to Maykop culture, which is late Neolithic, maybe early Bronze Age. So this is more or less relatively, yeah, more or less well attributed things. Also, we have other objects of Ukraine that introduce something similar. Same engraving technique, polishing of the inner surface, same horn shapes, little bit further to the west as a part of burial ground. So yeah, this one is relatively secure. It shows the context of Eurasian steppe coming to the Ukraine and bringing the pieces of material culture. B, methodological and interpretational difficulties we face here. And C, the power of 3D modeling to solve some of these differences. Not all of them, but difficulties. Not all of them, but some of them. Yeah, this is the second thing. Now the third one would be Mesolithic. This one is cool. There's a small disclaimer that in Ukraine there is a tradition of defining Neolithic sites by chronological period, not by the presence of Neolithic way of life, which would you call farming activities and yeah, whatever. So when I say Mesolithic here, I mean that they were not doing farming. And basically the only thing they have from this, what we usually call Neolithic objects, are pottery. Everything else is not in place. Yeah, so it's somewhat 10 to 6 million BC. And Mesolithic here in southeastern Ukraine, in southwestern Russia, and in that part of steppe overall, is represented by fishing-oriented economically guys who were sometimes settling and sometimes just traveling along large rivers, making camps or settlements with, let's say, river-oriented economy. So what we expect from them is the fish images. This one would be a great example of fish images, if not this thing. Yeah, we don't like it. It shouldn't be here if that's Mesolithic. So we spent some time studying this guy. It's located in what we call Dragon Cave, discovered 1993. That's the cave, so you would see how small it is and what's actually going on there. It's very hard to get there. We actually failed to locate our bodies there, and the process of acquiring images meant that we just put cameras somewhere there and try to see what happens. What we did is the 3D model of it, photogrammetry, and then based on this photogrammetry, revealing the relative chronology of what is engraved. What we see here is that after interpretation, this whole thing is faced for everything before the sandal, yeah, the footstep, and then small technologically different objects after the footstep. So our claim was that footstep marks the change of engraven faces. And based on that, we thought that if we want to interpret the object, which was not considered as fish image at the moment, we want to concentrate on what is marked red, yeah, the first engraven face. And when doing that, we realized that the double zigzag pattern is quite typical for Mesolithic ornated bones and stones from the same region, and basically to wider Mesolithic contexts as well, and is related to fishing river-oriented societies. Right there on Kamyana Mohyla and its surroundings, we see that they were intensively fishing for catfish from the bone assemblage at site. Yes, so the preliminary interpretation of this guy is that it resembles a catfish with this double zigzag and other types of zigzag on its surface, and this footprint was added later. We can assume that it's dated to early Bronze Age, but that's just an assumption so far. And I think that here in Western Norway, you might find some similarities or like you might think that you heard of late Mesolithic fission-oriented communities with double zigzag engravings and a flint industry that includes pencil-like cores, shell middens, and this is the images from the excavation of the settlement I was referring before, Kamyana Mohyla 1, dated to this Mesolithic part is dated to 7 millennia BC to 6 millennia BC and is located concentrated at this layer B. They even pictured fish in their flint objects, which is quite cool as well. This is relatively unique scene for Ukrainian Stone Age. So that's very typical of what we see as Mesolithic in Ukraine and in southwest Russia, everywhere. In everything but the rock art. Yeah, while we only know two Mesolithic sites with late Mesolithic fission-oriented sites with rock art is Kamyana Mohyla and Lipensky Vir. Obviously the figures from Lipensky Vir are way cooler, but well, we have what we have. And also, besides all that, we have some other caves that has fish images and zigzag in combination, and we have portable stones from what is called Chiringa's cave. Some of these stones are arguably represent fish. Some, like this lower part, were interpreted as representing fish, but this is debatable. Let's say debatable. But the cool thing is this cave that is a concentration of fish figurines or fish-like figurines also consists has other types of portable sandstone blocks with a specific morphology of the sandstone, and the only other place where we see this specific morphology was with dense sandstone of different color is the settlement of Kamyana Mohyla 1, so this late Mesolithic layer. So there is a coherence between the choose of geological structures to deal with in this cave and the settlement. That just an additional clue of what might have happened there. And we know that these guys are manufactured because their shape is artificial, and we checked it with microscopic study and photogrammetry. That's more or less the summary of what I just said. The guy who excavated them in the 70s just said, that's fishes, they probably late Mesolithic, and our archaeological excavations during 21st century largely support this hypothesis, but gives much more clues to why he was right. And now the tough part comes, which is Upper Paleolithic. The problem with that is that Upper Paleolithic in Ukraine has been also found in 70s, also presents the parietal objects and portable objects, but none of them are as representative as to say, that's it. The numbers are very approximate, obviously. We don't actually know what is Upper Paleolithic of Eurasian Steppe properly. No one paid real attention to that. There are some sites, but locating them, even from the terms of flint industry, is quite a challenge. Not saying about other ways of understanding the Upper Paleolithic. So there are portable objects, 150 of them, mostly concentrated in the cave that we used to call Wizard Cave. There are some parietal images on the ceiling of the cave. They thought to be figurative, but the point is this black pigment is also an late addition of the guy who discovered them, because he was very passionate about making a photo that would be representative of the engravings there. So he draw all engraved pieces with the pastel coil to brighten the images that he wanted to show, and then delivered an argument that there are parietal objects that represent something upper Paleolithic, and there are portable rock art objects like these ones that represent something upper Paleolithic in this cave. He also thought that there are upper Paleolithic sites in the Kamyana Mohyla surrounding, and that kind of supports that hypothesis, while that not actually gives the direct evidence. That's okay. The problem is to work with that argument of his. We need to have a closer look at these objects, and this black pigment actually spoils the observation quite a lot. So the only way to do it is methodological solution, developing some digital methodological solutions, and that was my job for last several years. And now the methodological part comes in. What I would want to do with these objects is get the abstract view of what is the surface without the black additions, without the pigment. Obviously, that requires 3D modeling. There are two ways of do 3D modeling: laser scanning and photogrammetry. With laser scanning, we face several problems. The availability, it's quite expensive, and we don't have the solutions for that, for such thing in Ukraine. Laser scanner faces some size limitations and scale limitations where that can't be overcome because of hardware solutions for laser scanning. And the biggest problem for me is that I don't actually know what laser scanner is doing, because basically what's happening here is that the machine randomly shoots points to locate the surface. And I don't know how these points are located. I don't know what is the principle of reconstructing the surface, because there's no principle. If the point is happened to end up on the surface and went back, it is located there. For some reason, it might avoid locating some specific points, so I don't like this. I would want to have more control. That's why we focused on photogrammetry, but there are some problems as well. First, the problem of how to assess the accuracy, because with laser scanner, there's these problems as well, but at least the guys who developed laser scanner put the word accuracy somewhere there, and you can read, the accuracy is 0.1. This is not happening here. And obviously it's way longer, and you always need to think about how I do this, how I do that. And then there is no good solution for the shape reconstruction. What I mean by the third one is that when you deal with parietal art, the workflow is very simple. I guess you know this guy from Alta, northern Norway. You just make image from different directions and you have the surface. Cool. When it gets to the portable art, we face the problem of portable objects laying on some surface, and I want to have them reconstructed in their entirety. So I need to rotate them, which means different sets of image acquisition, which means I need to rotate them physically. But when I rotate them on a background, the software gets confused about what's going on the background. So to deal with that, I need to persuade the software to take into account the object, but not the background. And that requires a very specific software solution. Only 3 programs so far perform that. So that is the one part. When I need to rotate the object, then process it in a software to persuade to ignore everything but this. And this is largely the result. I'm basically tricking the software. And when I'm doing that, I need to have in mind that photogrammetry is not scalable. So if I want to have the size measurement for this, I need to put some scale bar there. This is the problem. Yeah, this would be the regular workflow. I have some scale bar, put the object in there, do this processing, first time with the scale bar, then without scale bar, and then I have a 3D model in the very end. Cool. The problem is, yeah, well, cool. Because that is controllable in terms of the accuracy assessment. Accuracy depends on the scale bar. It is cheap. It's 6 times cheaper than the same result but with laser scanner. I know what I'm doing, and if I want to have some specific point, I just put more attention to that via photogrammetry. And once you realize how to do that, it's quite straightforward. The problem is when you have shallow engravings, you need to be very careful about accuracy and resolution. Like, we are not talking about millimeter, that's all happening on submillimeter parameters. This is, for example, the parameters for Arteclio laser scanner, which is something 40,000 euros, and we need to go beyond that. Most of rock art papers I saw on laser scanning and 3D modeling actually don't care about the limitations laser scanner provides to them, and that's a big problem. Yeah, but there is a problem of how to develop the scale bar that would be accurate enough. We just made it with computer numeric control machine and several cross-checking with laser interferometer, and that led us to these numbers, which means I'm sure about my measurements up to 0.3, 0.4 millimeters, and I can distinguish separate feature up to 0.1 millimeter. That's relatively not bad. I can do better if I have other equipment and a little bit different workflow, but for objects from Kamyana Mohyla, it's quite okay. Now, what does it give to us, actually? I can have a 3D model and take a look at it with the artificial light simulation, abstract it from the images, and that's the result. So here we have the photo image of what the object is. Here is the drawing made in 70s by the guy who was passionate about archaeological, and here is what actually is engraved there. This red marks point what he probably thought was the part of these female figures. That same pattern happens for all 150 objects. Like, there is literally nothing figurative there at all. That was very exciting to work through that, because I literally spent 3 months checking them one by one and realizing that there's nothing, like repeatedly nothing. But that's very interesting as a study case. That led me to think, well, what else I can do with this result. First, yeah, obviously, relative chronology, Harris matrices, directional engraving, all that interesting stuff. That is completely useless if there is nothing specific engraved, if it's not non-figurative. The only actual conclusion I can get from it is that it is random. That's good to know, but that's not very informative. Other thing I would want to do is study the cross-sections of these engraved objects, of these engravings, and try to systematize that. What I see during systematization is there are relatively a lot of types of doing this and a lot of types of results, but most of them indicate same engraving strategy, which is scratching, or what you would call sewing with some tool, and produces this kind of profile, this asymmetric profile, not very deep, with not very deep, U-shaped profile with small slope and absence of symmetry. The guys who did experiment on that in Italy assumed sewing as the most probable strategy for that, but they haven't ever tried sandstone things. So it should be cross-checked with specific geology. That's the main hypothesis anyway. And what we see here is that there is a clear dependency between the engraven shape and where the portable rock art object is found. If there's late Mesolithic guys from Churinga cave, they are likely to be engraved with shallower, smaller, almost invisible engravings. And this one that considered to be Upper Paleolithic are generally engraved with deeper notches. Why so? Maybe because the technology was different, but the shape is the same except for the depth. I mean, yeah, the shape is the same, the parameters are the same, the only difference is the scale to which engravings correspond. So another answer what could be the source of the difference is the density of this stone support. Luckily with the 3D modeling I can check the volume of the irregular object, weight it, test the density, and search for a correlation between density and the concentration of shallow engravings. So we see that this green group, which is not engraved at all, is the densiest one. The middle group, we engraved with very shallow things, is the same group that is marked with orange here. And this with deeper deeper notches, has the less density and is easier to engrave. Which means that most probably the technology of making engravings was the same, never without any reference to the chronological attribution of these objects. And the differences lie in the geological structures, yes, so the matters of objective reality and not on the artistic design of the guys who made these engravings. And one other thing is that what I like about all this process with 3D modeling, photogrammetry and stuff is that examining 3D models forces you to spend time looking at them. And you can find something you would not find unless you look at them. For instance, this thing introduces the very interesting phenomena for the rock art object. Here's the portable stone. It was engraved. Then at some point, this small piece was fractured from it and then engraved separately. The larger part of the stone was brought back to the cave, and we know that because this varnish, what we call desert varnish, is only present on the one side of this larger stone. But the smaller piece has desert varnish on both sides and was likely engraved separately later. But then it ended up in the same cave, was found by same guy during 1 year excavation, and then glued together in a very brutal way, I must say. The cool thing about that is that we know these rock art objects, yes, these stones, were taken from the site, from the cave, maybe this cave, maybe any other cave, doesn't matter, engraved and then brought back. And then the part that fractured was engraved and then brought back too. That generally corresponds to the ways we consider portable art being treated anywhere else in Europe and outside of Europe. But also that means that portable art here introduces the very specific phenomenon of interaction between the site as a landscape, these portable stones, and the guys who made the engravings. They basically used these portable stones as the, well, I don't want to call that communication device, but if we were deep into speculative realism, I would say that yes, these are communication devices that were engraved as a part of communication with the site and then ended up in this specific landscape, which is more or less the rule for these objects. And this is cool because this is the human landscape scene entanglement as was promised by Jan Hodder. But also this is cool because that shows the modes of interaction of these people to the site, even though they haven't lived there. They were living somewhere nearby, yeah, and yet interacted with it in this transitive nature, yeah, a transitive way. Otherwise, it's all quite sad because we don't have real evidence of Upper Paleolithic rock art there. It might be Upper Paleolithic, but we're not able to prove it so far. Maybe someday, not now. And yet, I really like this example as the methodological thing and as the introduction to what we will do with Kamyana Mohyla rock art once we will have an access to that, if it survives. These objects, by the way, are relatively safe. They are in Kyiv since they were excavated in the 70s. Those that were stored on Kamyana Mohyla in the reserve itself were likely stolen and are now in Crimea, which, well, yeah, happens. Yeah, just to sum up, Kamyana Mohyla is very cool. It's extremely unique site of that kind. You don't have this fishing context anywhere else in its surroundings and further to the east, but you don't have this steppe context anywhere further to the west. It's very cool to have parallels both from Danube River and Western Mongolia or Eastern Kazakhstan. It's very interesting to search for the connection between archaeological context and this rock art context, since the site is so unique. And yeah, approaching it without 3D modeling now seems largely irrelevant, because that's our only good solution to get to what is actually engraved there on a proper level. There are many things to dip into, but yeah, we will do it later. And that's more or less it. Thank you for being with me.
Thank you, Simon, for an excellent presentation, and I want to commend you on really good photos.
Thank you.
It really helps the attendees here to get a proper grasp on the images and everything. I mean, rock art in general is a very traditional subject in archaeology, and we have all of these issues with wild interpretations, and then it gets evident now with new technology that, yeah, fantasies really have run rampant. Yeah. Are there any questions here for Simon? I have a couple, some not necessarily too related to archaeology in itself, but I'm curious about the names of these caves, the Wizard Cave and the Dragon Cave. Yeah. Do you know the background for that?
Yeah, I know the background for that. So I might want to start from the concept, from telling the concept of archaeology in Ukraine, which is a very romanticized practice. Unlike in Norway, we don't do rescue excavations until recently. We haven't had the practice of rescue excavation until recently. That means that all guys who do excavations do them because they just want to. And that makes it very romantic and full of enthusiastic people. So basically all these caves were named by guys who discovered them and like, wow, what is this? This is a wizard, so this will be a wizard cave. The Dragon Cave, for instance, has been discovered in 1993, if I'm not mistaken, by the son of the head of this reserve, Kamyana Mohyla Reserve. And he said, yeah, okay, that's the dragon, so that will be the Dragon Cave. Why not?
Possibly inspired by Tolkien, or yeah, who knows?
Why not?
What do you think the prospects are for finding similar sites nearby?
Not that scale, but I'm sure there should be more of rock art locations there, at least small ones. I'm sure that no one actually searched for rock art there. We know that there are some petrographic anomalies in the surroundings, and there are archaeological finds nearby. So most probably no one just searched for rock art there.
Yeah.
I was planning to do that, but then COVID came, and well, later.
Yeah. Exactly. Was there a question here, Ramona? Yeah.
Thank you so much. This was really, really interesting. And I think I'm probably asking you something now that you probably explained quite well in the beginning, and I just, I was looking at the pictures and didn't listen, sorry. But you said people never lived there. Can you just explain the evidence for that one more time to the slow ones in the room?
That's the statement that is built on the absence of evidence, so it's not that correct. But the soil, there's no soil on Kamyana Mohyla, it's just sand. And they were repeatedly attempting to excavate the sand and the caves throughout whole 20th century, like starting from 1938 up to actually 2019. And there's nothing. There are some evidence of material culture, some burials, this and that. But no presence of cultural layer as it is. That doesn't mean they were not living in the context of Kamyana Mohyla, because the settlement I was referring to is, what's that, 180 meters from it? It's nothing. Yeah, so you see, that's the site, that's me, that's the excavation place. So it's very close. So that statement only refers to the fact that the caves were non-inhabited. Yeah.
Solveig.
Yeah, thank you, Simon, for a great presentation. Maybe you mentioned it already, but so all the rock art is inside the shelter, or are there engravings outside, like in the open air?
Yes. They are. These from the Iron Age I was showing are mostly outside, even though there are some that inaccessible, not accessible now because they are covered with sand, but they are outside of the shelter. So that's this tricky situation when they are they are there, but we can't get there. But in Neolithic is in the cave, concentrated in the cave. Mesolithic is in the cave. Yeah, so everything older than a supposed Bronze Age actually is located in the shelters.
Okay. And you said you had to remove sand, like excavation, not just register?
Yeah, so the guys did that in 70s. They had quite, I will tell that in another way. The massive excavations there happened in 50s when Stalin decided to build a dam right across the rock art site and flood the whole region. This never happened because he died before the project was finalized. Not too late, as I would say, but well, that happened. And they excavated caves, spending a lot of money to support sandstone blocks to prevent crashing. When we did 3D models for the dragon in the dragon cave, regularly it's filled with sand, but there were some heavy rains during that period and sand was washed out, and we basically just used 1 month when it was possible to get there. There was a little bit snowy and dark, but we managed. That was quite an extreme experience. And with the Neolithic, the bull cave, with all the cool stuff, we were forced to do some little shoveling to get there, and that was quite scary. Because we repeatedly heard the sound of something not being that happy to see us there. But that was 2018, and we decided that we want to do that and then start some proper rock art investigations, and after that it was not possible anymore. So I'm quite glad we did that.
And last question. Is there, I know they're very small, these shelters, as you said, but is there like a narrative, like are the engravings placed in a specific way, or a little bit like Chauvet, like towards the entrance you have like the red illustrations, and then the more you go in you have like the black ones, and you have this dialogue with the space and
we are not at that point yet,
okay.
Because before talking about that way, I would want to have a proper map of at least one shelter. And to be honest, I don't have it quite so far. This cool analytic picture that I was showing at the beginning, I will just switch to that one. Yeah, I must probably should have said it actually in the talk. So. This one is the row of animals on the cornice. 1, 2, 3. There's 4 here, but it suffered from the ceiling collapse, and it's not really there. And this guy was found there, but the block crashed, so they took it to Kiev. So that's probably part of piece of one composition. And what does it? I'm not sure if I can provide a proper interpretation to that. There's definitely some special. There are definitely some special scenes, special ideas, but yeah, I can't report on them right now. This is located on the nearby the entrance, same as this. The only clear pattern I can report is that cup marks concentrated closer to the entrance. But to do whatever you want with that.
Thank you. Last one. Did you find any tools, like engraving tools? I mean, I guess you would have mentioned it. But,
we found some tools in this Neolithic cave, which also supports Neolithic attribution. They were not there was not engraven tools. They were just artifacts that support Neolithic attribution. I'm not sure we found any actually engraving tools yet, because to find them, we need to know what we are searching for. The guys who excavated that last century, they found some sandstone objects they considered to be engraving tools. But surprise, you can't engrave sandstone with sandstone. So that definitely wrong. My assumption is that it was engraved with flint tools that would have a specific type of useware, which we can identify, and there are guys from France who do the same on the sandstone rock art and do great job on that, also for late Mesolithic, so their work is quite cool and related to that. Yeah, but we haven't done anything with that anymore so far.
Do we have any other questions there? Yes, Syria.
I can use my voice.
Just to pick it up for the screen.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I can use a microphone as well. So I was wondering if the Upper Paleolithic maybe time period, is it only portable art with those kind of engravings?
Well.
Or was there also on the walls, or yeah?
Yeah. Okay. So the question is if this is all about portable objects, or no? There are parietal ones. I didn't show them because they overall introduced the same pattern.
Okay.
So the guy found them. He saw that this is something, which double checked, and yeah. Although I can maybe expand on that a little bit, because there is one engraving, which is an engraving of a wizard. Guess why? It's right in the entrance of this wizard cave, so this is the only one accessible from there. And we made a 3D model from it. I wasn't expected much. I thought that the black pigment is just random and the engraving's showing something else. But it seems that black pigment on this one specifically is pretty accurate. Okay. It's a little bit more daring in interpretation, but still it might be interpreted as something.
Okay.
So I would not say that we reject the Upper Paleolithic hypothesis for these objects so far. We just are not able to prove it.
Yeah. So a follow-up question on this. Yeah, maybe portable art, and some of them are also, I guess, local, or I don't know how you could say it in English. But is there any other? Have you found the portable artifacts other places in Ukraine or in the steppe area? Yeah.
Yes, we have some, one or two actually, portable objects from apoplectic art in Ukrainian steppe. And we have this very distinct complex in northern Ukraine, which is engraved mammoth, bone and ivory. And there's a whole bunch of Venus figurines, actually a very distinct epigrammatian type in Mizin, Mezhirich, and these Politic sites nearby. These are very cool, and we now have the project on making 3D models of these guys, so we will try to make them visible, but I would say they are not related to this scene. Or if they are, well, it's hard to imagine this to be related how in terms of context.
Yeah.
But also we don't know much about apoplectic of the steppe, honestly. Because the only guy who did that, who looked at that closely, died before publishing most of his results. And now cool excavations has been done on that.
Cool.
On the said ones.
Yeah. Cool.
Anyone else? How common are those foot sole etchings in Ukrainian vicinity, the shoe?
They are not that, well, they are quite common on the anthropomorphic stelas.
Oh.
So you would expect seeing them at the Neolithic and early Bronze Age, Yamna culture, maybe stelas, across Ukraine. So these are relatively well attributed to whatever, like the beginning of 3rd millennia BC, I would say.
Yeah, it's sort of the same as in Norway, right? Yeah.
I think that more or less general context for whole Europe. Yeah. And has a lot to do with, Yamna and all stuff.
Yeah.
Thanks for the interesting about this art. But do you have any more assumption or theories about the people behind this? Or you mentioned some of it, but it's very difficult to assume, I think. And then, is it people moving or staying, or do you have any more about that?
Depends on the time frame. Overall, there are some things that can be said for sure. So this, for example, most probably related to what we call the Reivska culture, and we know more or less that they are nomadic pastoralists coming from the east, not so far east, Russian southwest, with this type of material culture. Pottery, most probably speaking Indo-European, but not R1b haplogroup yet. So, not modern European DNA, but already this family language. Yeah, those guys who were from the Iron Age, Scythians and Sarmatians, they are quite well related to what actually are Scythians and Sarmatians. The Mesolithic guys are a little bit tricky because some DNA studies coming for Surska culture and then Kukrek culture, what is attributed to that late Mesolithic. But nothing can be summarized yet. We are thinking of them as reoriented economy of semi-sedentary fishers who either settled on the riverbanks and lived from fishing, or did that in the winter season and then summer season did hunter-gathering, mostly. But again, that was not summarized to the proper extent yet. I know that there's a book to come from my colleague Dmytro Kiosak, who's dealing with this. But looking forward to it. So.
Okay. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you.
So the next seminar is on the 19th of April, and then we're going to introduce another Simon Armitage, whose talk is going to, well, the title is Archaeological Questions You Can and Cannot Answer Using Luminescence Dating. So I hope to see you then and there. Thank you.